Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today, and we're happy to report the good is actually just good. And this comes to us courtesy of polling from Emerson. Emerson is looking not only at the presidential race, but also at some of the key Senate races. And they are out with new surveys in two critical Rust Belt battleground states, namely Pennsylvania and Ohio. And in the Senate races, it's very good news. They have Rob Portman ahead of Ted Strickland, 40 to 25%, so obviously a 15-point lead. They've also got Pat Toomey ahead of Katie McGinty in Pennsylvania. That's a 7-point lead, still obviously competitive. But it's better than it certainly has been for Toomey in recent surveys. We should point out that in the presidential surveys from Emerson in these same states, they've got it tied in Ohio and Hillary by 3 in Pennsylvania, which is a little bit tighter than some of the other polls. So we might need to calibrate these Senate polls a bit.
Unskew them, Greg. Because once you calculate the size of Trump's crowds, he's up by 40 bazillion percentage points. That's the likely assessment from the comments section. No, you can argue there's too many landlines or something like that. Look, at this point, Republicans will take good news wherever they can get it. It's not surprising that quite a few polls have shown Toomey running ahead of Donald Trump. And I think a lot of Republicans look at this and say, look, if winning requires Toomey to run 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 points ahead of Trump, he probably can do that. If the gap in Pennsylvania gets really bad and you're looking at a 9, 10, 11 percentage points or maybe even 12 percentage point gap between Hillary and Trump, it's just going to be a lot tougher. There are only so many people who are willing to split their ticket in a state like that. Now, the other good news is in a year where a lot of stuff has gone wrong for Republicans, Rob Portman, I don't think he would be offended if I said that he's not a whirling dervish of raw political charisma.
Right.
One of those solid, reliable workhorse, not a show horse type Republican senators is actually looking pretty good. He's polling pretty consistently. And a lot of Democrats are starting to say, you know what? Nominating the governor who got tossed out on his keister back in 2010 maybe wasn't such a good thing. Maybe there aren't such fond memories of this guy. And the fact that he has to run ads explaining why he lost probably is another bad sign. So, sometimes you get the big name you're looking for, and then sometimes the big name you're looking for ends up having enough baggage to weigh them down. And that appears to be what's going on here in Ohio.
Wow, can't relate to the baggage issue at all on the larger political stage. Ted Strickland's really got some answers to do. He's only at 25%, so you still have 35% of the electorate either undecided or not really knowing who these candidates are yet, but still will take a 15-point lead even if Portman is only at 40%. So obviously Republicans have a 54-46 advantage in the Senate. They need to lose no more than 4 if the Republicans win the White House. They need to lose no more than 3 if the Democrats win the White House. So on to the bad martini now. And Jim, your old friend John Kerry is up to his old tricks again. This is courtesy of The Blaze. Secretary of State John Kerry argued Monday during a press conference in Bangladesh that the press corps could do us all a service, quote unquote, if they stopped covering terrorism quite as much. No country is immune from terrorism, Kerry told journalists in Dhaka. Quote, it's easy to terrorize. Government and law enforcement have to be correct 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But if you decide one day you're going to be a terrorist and you're willing to kill yourself, you can go out and kill some people. You can make some noise. Perhaps the media would do us all a service if they didn't cover it quite as much, he added. People wouldn't know what's going on. Jim, I'm pretty sure the point of the media is so folks do know what's going on, and shame on us, apparently, though, for covering terrorism.
Let me tell you, Greg, only the good news. Once you start reporting the bad news, then it's bad. Yeah, that's my John Kerry impression's been on a shelf for a while, so I have to dust it off and maybe bring it up to speed. This is it's not surprising that John Kerry says something stupid. He's been doing that for a very long time. Some would argue going back to Genghis Khan. The couple things jump out about this, though. One, I think it's a bit of a Freudian slip here. We can argue about whether media coverage at some point does the work for the terrorists or helps spread their message or inadvertently contributes to their propaganda or something like this. But in the case of this, what he says people wouldn't know what's going on. And what you missed there, Greg, is in the State Department transcript. After that, it says parentheses, applause. People wouldn't know what's going on. Yay! Now, as if that's not bad enough, he's giving this speech at the Edward M. Kennedy Center in Dhaka, Bangladesh. And if you're asking, hey, wait, why is there an Edward M. Kennedy Center in Dhaka, Bangladesh? I'm not kidding. This apparently, as a senator, he went there and planted some tree or something. And that's, they decided, okay, we're going to create a community center. It's a joint project between a museum in Bangladesh and the U.S. Embassy. But I looked up the website, and honest to goodness says, Greg, the center is, quote, committed to open dialogue, informed action. Remember, they just applauded. People wouldn't know what's going on. Individual and artistic expression and personal and professional development, but not apparently at the expense of the media covering terrorism. Look, people are going to say, it's one line in a speech or something like that. I do think there's something kind of revealing about this. I think this administration is irritated that there's the attention at terrorism that there is. And I think you and I might argue that terrorism disappears out of the headlines for long stretches, even if the threat hasn't gone away. It doesn't feel like a country's at war. It doesn't feel like wartime, and yet the danger, is still there. People don't talk about terrorism the day before Orlando, and then something like Orlando happens, and everyone's discussing it again. People don't talk about it. Fort Hood, San Bernardino. We have these attacks, the attacks in Europe, and then we talk about it for a couple of days, and then we kind of go back, we forget about it, and the threat is still there. And I think we're kind of frustrated by this. But in the mind of John Kerry, it's like, stop paying attention to this. You're only giving the terrorists attention. And if we ignore them, they'll go away, which I think is not a particularly likely scenario there. So it just kind of utterly irritating that Kerry is taking this approach, and that apparently a crowd of, I'm guessing, diplomatic staff and other folks there in Bangladesh, they're on board with this. Yes, it's time for a better, less informed America, Greg. Make America ignorant again.
Oh, we're well on our way. I don't even know that we need
help with that.
And Bangladesh just had a terrorist attack, so apparently they didn't want to know about it if they're all applauding. I don't know how many Bangladeshis were actually in the room, but interestingly, John Kerry has outdone himself again. On to the crazy Martini now, and Jim, this is courtesy of Fox News. Former Texas governor and two-time Republican presidential candidate Rick Perry reportedly will join the cast of ABC's Dancing with the Stars for the upcoming season. The full cast list for season 23 was to be revealed on Good Morning America Tuesday. However, ET Online reported Monday that Perry, former Detroit Lions wide receiver Calvin Johnson, and recording artist Vanilla Ice would be among the celebrities strutting their stuff as they battle for the coveted Mirror Ball Trophy. Other stars who will hit the dance floor include Brady Bunch star Maureen McCormick, that's Marsha for those of you keeping track at home, and U.S. Olympians Laurie Hernandez and Ryan Lochte. So, Jim, Rick Perry has gone from probably being on the first tier of the wish list for most conservatives when the campaign started with that huge field of 17 last year, to calling Donald Trump a cancer to conservatism, to now holding Donald Trump's coat on the campaign trail, and now he's going to be hanging out with Vanilla Ice and Ryan Lochte. This is not the progression that we were looking for Rick Perry here.
Well, based on his comments on Trump, I guess we know Perry can already pirouette, huh? Now, look, I say this as a guy who's really liked Rick Perry. He says he's doing this to raise money for veterans, and he should. I think the minimum you get on that show is like $125,000. So if it ends up helping a good cause, fine.
True.
I don't know about you. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. It does seem a little undignified to say, and here's Rick Perry in between Vanilla Ice and Amber Rose. And in kind of what's that? It just seems that the most quintessential 2016 thing, Greg, that we have an accomplished conservative governor who presided over an economic boom on a reality show, and the Republicans have nominated a reality show star. We've done it completely backwards. And if there's some way to swap, terrific. Otherwise, I just feel like it's the world has gone upside down, Greg.
That is true. And good point. Well done on your part to research the fact that he is planning to donate however much he wins to charity. So good on the governor for doing that. If he is going to do this, and apparently he is, obviously our advice to him is don't hang out with Lochte after the show.
Greg, I have decided if I ever see Ryan Lochte, you know what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to mug him. Who's going to believe him? Guys, you're not going to believe what happened. There is a story that actor Bill Murray will run around if he's at a restaurant, shopping mall, places like that. He will go up to people who are eating French fries, and he will take one. He says, "I am Bill Murray. I am stealing your French fries. and no one will ever believe you. And then he runs away. And it's happened enough times that people are now thinking, okay, it probably really was Bill Murray running around stealing your French fries. And so now, if somebody says, guys, you're not going to believe me, I just got mugged, like no one will ever believe Ryan Lochte. So it's harder and harder to make fun of the news because the news is so inherently absurd by the time it gets to us. It doesn't require, as I wrote, you can't parody this news. You can't be, it's very hard to do satire. The world becomes pre-satirical at this point.
Enjoy the insanity. Talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And be sure to tune in again on Wednesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.